Welcome to Leaders in Action. I'm Robin Trimmingham of the Olderhood Group, and my guests today are Olderhood CEO Bill Story and Inderjit Singh, ICAO aviation consultant and former CEO of the Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi. Today, we're chatting about the current state of the aviation industry and challenges of gradually restarting air travel. If you watched the first video in this segment, when we last saw Indy, he was hurtling down an airport runway underneath a burning aircraft. So if you missed that segment, you absolutely have to go back and watch that and then come and watch this one. Welcome, gentlemen.
Obviously this pandemic has caused problems for many industries around the world. It's a global situation, a global pandemic. So with something like, I think it's like 90% of the world's aircraft are presently grounded due to this, this pandemic. How are airports and the aviation authorities, working together to plan for the future, to plan for future air travel?
Sure. As you know, the entire global aviation regulatory and trade bodies like IATA, ICAO, in collaboration with WHO, have collectively evolved norms, rules, and regulations in all the aspects of passenger and aircraft handling during the post-pandemic operations. What meets the eye, what we often see in the webinars and in discussions, the focus is on terminal buildings. I mean, we have very seldom people talk about the air side. So I'm so happy that you touched upon that we should be thinking big. We should be thinking, at least as professionals or as airport operators. Surely terminal buildings have been in focus because that's what meets the eye of every traveler. People don't know what happens behind the scene, and as airport operators, 80% or 90% of our efforts go onto the air side. We'll come to that a little later. So to answer your question, fortunately for us, our global regulatory bodies have come out with norms for each and every aspect of the airport, which basically comprises of the land side, the terminal building, the interface building, and the air side.
Yeah.
So we are fortunate that there has been a great coordination between all these agencies.
Okay, so let's start and touch on the land side. And then I know that almost everybody who watches this will, be on the passenger side. So we're going to be very fascinated to hear about what happens on the air side as well. But let's start. What sort of measures are being contemplated to ensure passenger safety and, halting the spread of this horrible virus?
Absolutely right, Robin. And I think passenger is at the core of our activities. After all, we are serving the passengers. They are our bread and butter. So naturally, our concern is to make sure that passengers are comfortable. We are able to inculcate that confidence in them so that they can take to skies again. So that little reluctance or the fear to fly should be eradicated. We have upgraded our airports and aircraft to arrest the spread of the virus. We are just trying to arrest it. In the absence of any vaccine, we cannot say we'll eradicate it. So maybe a day will come when we'll soon declare that, yes, we have eradicated it. But at the moment, we are arresting it by integrating gadgets and specifying norms for personal hygiene and sanitation, social distancing, and mandatory use of masks. So these are 3 or 4 basic things that we want to do. Of course, recording temperatures and all that goes without saying, that comes under the gadgets. Similarly, airlines have ensured provision of mechanisms for superior air quality and air change frequencies. I mean, the moment this word spreads that such kind of precautions are being taken, I'm sure a lot of fear would go away and people would be aligned to travel again.
I think it's obvious, or it's an obvious question about, you use the expression, fear to fly. I think you're absolutely correct. I think that is the biggest issue from a passenger perspective. But do you think that the airline industry will be, using some of the techniques that you're elaborating, do you think that the airline industry will be able in time to convince people to fly? Now, I mean, I know some people are flying at the moment, I understand, but the bigger numbers have to come back. Do you think the airline industry will be able to cope to basically get their numbers back up?
Of course, yes. I mean, there is history to prove that. Remember 9/11? People thought that the aviation is doomed. There'll be no more flights. People will never venture traveling. But I feel in the initial stages, of course, there was a bit of reluctance, reporting 2 hours in advance, lining up in the queues, removing shoes, belts and all, of course. Then they called it new normal. Today it's normal. So this new normal, which is a very fashionable word, I think it's going to remain there only for a few days. You see, if we have overcome a hardship by certain way of living, it's normal. So I personally think that it's going to be very normal going through all these gadgetries and all that stuff. And airlines, aircraft, I mean, after all, airlines are very much concerned about passengers, and so are we in the airports. So this fear would go away. I mean, I'm sure it's just a matter of time. We've gone through SARS, Ebola, E1, N1 and all. Remember, just our effort should be to convince them not by rhetoric, by demonstration.
Yes.
Our airports should be seen to be equipped with all this. So I think that's more important.
So talk to us a little bit, because we don't have a whole lot of time today, about the air side and some of the challenges when you had, 90% of your fleet on the ground in the airports in places where you don't normally park airplanes, and what has to happen to get these planes back in the air.
Sure. We talk of turnaround time, Robin, and every minute saved, because an aircraft, as you know, is at its best when it is in the air and not on the ground. So when turnaround time is 45 and you do it in 42, you feel damn thrilled that you got 3 minutes saved on the ground and you are in the air. We as operators feel good that our bay is now vacant. Now the turnaround time has turned into 4 to 5 months. So you can see the plight of those aircraft and the infrastructure at an airport. You see all our pavements, pavements are where you park your aircraft, and runways and taxiways are designed for dynamic loading. You can't have static loading on it. Tons and tons of an aircraft just sitting there for months together. So it doesn't come to a naked eye, but the deformation of the pavements has taken place. The moisture, the air, the foul air, the nests, the birds, and all sorts of things are all around the place. So you have to see that the hydraulic system, the electronic system of an aircraft, even the fuel in the tanks has to be replenished. You have to draw it out and then fill it. Otherwise, it will get corroded inside. So, there are so many things that they don't meet the eye of a normal passenger, but we as operators know. So it's been a tough time for us to ensure that that aircraft are safe, they are serviced regularly, and they are moved around a little bit so that that distortion may not come in, because that's going to be a very long drawn process.
So we've got about a minute left here. Do you anticipate there will be differences in how air travel restarts, maybe between, say, short haul and long haul?
Yes, I think to start with, short hauls will be preferred because, domestic traffic predominantly, or regional kind of traffic, going from one state to another state, which is just next door to one another. Because there are reciprocal arrangements also required. I mean, we may like to fly into Bermuda, you may not like us to come there or receive us there, and vice versa. So international would probably take little more time, and government is also not so keen to push it fast. They are taking a very cautious and a very calibrated view on the whole matter. So that's good about it, yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for spending time chatting with us today. You've been watching Leaders in Action. If you have a question or would like to suggest a topic for an upcoming segment, you can email us at Bill, that's BILL, @alderhood.com. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon.